Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, baby. We're back at it. We're bringing you the underground information about aliens, unheard of stories of UFO legend and lore, and government conspiracies. And this one is going to knock your socks off. So stay tuned and enjoy. So, hey, I hope you guys are having a great day, taking care of yourself spiritually, physically, and emotionally, watching out for any negativity, and just, enjoying your life. So, what are we going to talk to you today about? Dude, you're not going to believe this, but yeah, this story came out a few years ago, but it hasn't gained traction really till recently. The FBI made their own cell phone company. Yeah, did you know that? I bet you didn't. There was an FBI underground cell phone company that they specifically marketed towards criminals so they could build cases against them. No, they didn't go out and give them to criminals. The criminals went and sought out these phones because they promised anonymity. Gotta love that, right? Just like all of the Apple phones out there that are promising anonymity. Oh, no, my friends, not everything is anonymous. And, there's a lot of things the government should be aware of because we don't want, a bunch of terrorists or anything like that. But, at the same time, holy shnikes, man, you don't want them to know everything. You want to have some privacy in your life. Obviously, the bad guys shouldn't be doing bad stuff, but, you should be able to have, a peaceable life without the government coming in checking stuff out. So in June of 2021, the FBI and its law enforcement partners in Australia and Europe, this was an international ordeal. They had over 800 arrests. They had been listening in on their phone users' messages for years. In all, the authorities obtained over 27 million messages from over 11,800 devices running their special software, which was monikered ANOM, A-N-O-M, and it was used in 100 countries by silently adding an extra encryption key which allowed agencies to read a copy of these messages. Typically, government agencies would need a warrant and they would need probable cause to find your information. But if you buy their software, apparently they can just listen right on in and they don't need nothing. So people allegedly were smuggling cocaine hidden inside of cans of tuna. They were hollowing out pineapples and even diplomatic pouches, all used by this specific software, coordinated their large-scale trafficking operations according to court documents. Now imagine if they utilized this on the mass media, the mass public, and everybody was holding one of their phones, or at least a phone that they could access. Well, gee, willikers, everybody probably, inadvertently, I heard somewhere that inadvertently people commit like 3 felonies a day. And they don't even know it because there's so many goddamn laws in the U.S. you don't even know what you're doing half the time. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true or not. You may not know you're doing it, but it's accidental. But apparently there's people that are doing it. So let's take a look at this article and see a little bit more about how they put this together and exactly how it came to be. So, Trojan Shield, how the FBI ran a phone network for criminals. You gotta love this one. This one came out June 7th, 2021. So for years, the FBI ran an encrypted communications app that was used by an organized crime unit in order to basically collect all their data. And the phones were built with an operating software so the government could just pick up all the information, or they could shut it down if they wanted to. There were 2 similar encrypted messaging networks that they used. One was called Phantom Secure, and another one was called EncroChat. And basically, what they utilized was their own network. They created a network. They were like, we're tired of trying to hit up Verizon and getting cock blocked, trying to get this information. We're trying to gather a case, build cases against these people, and we're getting, blocked. So the FBI opened a new covert investigation called Operation Trojan Shield, which centered on exploiting an operation network that they would put into the phones. It was called Anom, A-N-O-M. So this Anom platform made it easy, super easy, for the FBI to just use and just continually read your messages as you are running a criminal network. So the user of Anom is unaware of its capability. Law enforcement is able to decrypt and store the message as it's transmitted. So if they use this network, boom, they had it. What's interesting is Vice, who wrote this particular article, actually got their hands on a phone that had this software on it. And this software is crazy because it makes your phone actually operate in a very kind of like sinister way. I'll read exactly kind of how it works, but basically what the FBI's company stated was, this is the quote: introducing Anom, an ultra-secure mobile cell phone messaging app for Android, the announcement read. Your confidentiality is assured. Software hardened against targeted surveillance and intrusion. Anom Secure. Keep your secrets safe. Isn't it funny how you feel like you're being told that you're secure, but no, that's not always the case, is it? Remember when they said, hey, you know what, when the government wants to protect you, they don't have your best interests in mind, right? The countries that give up all their guns never turns out well for the citizens. Yeah, it's kind of like this, right? You give up all of your security and it says you're anonymous. No, you're not anonymous, dude. The government knows everything you're doing, so don't be stupid. The Anom app started to grow initially with 50 devices distributed in Australia. So basically, we're distributing these phones out. And then it was slow at first, but soon the word of mouth spread. And Anom was gathering several hundred users a year later, basically. The third country got involved in the investigation and provided the FBI with Anom user data 3 times a week. This data comprised of all of the users of Anoms, with the exception of a few people. That's about it. They had 10,000 devices in 90 countries. Germany, Netherlands, Spain, Serbia were also popular. They had 300 distinct criminal organizations that they were cracking down on. And the number of obtained messages was 20 million since 2019. Dude, that's a shit ton of messages, man. But check this out, dude, okay? Check this out. They were trying to hide cocaine in what looks to be like a video game cartridge labeled with Batman on it, and they were sending these pictures to other guys in the organization, and it was just so easy for them to pick this shit up. But anyway, I want to pull it back to the last article to explain how crazy this phone worked. That it was mind-blowing. They hid the app in the calculator app inside of these phones. So this was the FBI honeypot. So basically, Vice got their hands on one of these phones and they started to play with it. They stated it was a sleek black phone that seems perfectly normal. It was a Google Pixel with a PIN code that revealed some common apps: Tinder, Instagram, Facebook, Netflix, even Candy Crush. But none of the apps work. When you tapped on their icons, it did nothing. Resetting the phone did nothing, except you were able to enter a PIN that would open up an entirely different section of the device with a new background and new apps. Now, in place of the old apps, sat a clock, a calculator, and a device settings. Checking the calculator doesn't open the calculator, but it opens a login screen. You enter your Anam ID on this screen, and then you put in your password, the screen reads. Hidden inside the calculator is a concealed messaging app called Anam, which last month they found out, back in 21, that it was an FBI honeypot. Anam, on Anam, the app, criminals believed they could communicate securely with the app encrypting their messages. They were wrong. So the whole international law enforcement group came down on them with the power of 1,000 suns. They obtained and analyzed an Anam phone from a source who unknowingly bought it from a classified ad site. On that site, the phone was advertised as just a cheap Android device, but when the person received it, they realized it wasn't an ordinary phone, and after being contacted by Motherboard, which is another website, I think it's part of Vice, they found that it secretly contained the Anam app. The person Motherboard bought the phone from panicked when I realized what I had purchased. Motherboard granted them an anonymity to protect them from any retaliation. Really wild shit, man. So when booting up the phone, it displays a logo for an operating system called Arcane. Arcane, like old, right? OS. Very little information is publicly available on Arcane OS. It's this detail that it led several people who ended up with Anam phones to realize something was unusual about their device. Most people online discussing the operating system appeared to be written by people who had recently inadvertently bought an Anam device. They found that it doesn't work like an ordinary phone. After the FBI announced the Anam operation, some Anam users have scrambled to get rid of their device, including selling it to unsuspecting people online, which is apparently how these guys got the phone in the first place. And other people are getting these phones super cheap because these guys want to get rid of that shit real quick. The person that Motherboard obtained the phone from was in Australia, where authorities initially spread the Anam devices as a pilot program before expanding it into other countries. They said that they contacted the Australian Federal Police in case the phone or the person who sold it to them was of interest. When the AFP didn't follow up, the person agreed to sell the phone to Motherboard for the same price they paid. And they said they originally bought it from a site similar to Craigslist in Australia. And so they sent the phone, and it got like a pic on here. It just looks like a regular phone. And the person said, when I bought this phone online for a ridiculously low price, I now understand why. And they got to the Anam screen, and they were like, this phone was probably some used by some sort of drug dealer, they said. So for the past few months, members of Android hobbyists and developer forums have been trying to help people who bought these strange phones and return them to a usable state. I cannot install any apps because there is no app store. Everything has been removed, one person said, who got a second-hand phone in Germany. And he said if he also had access to data, he could change all of the cell phone settings manually, one person stated. So it's very interesting. It seems like they use these Google Pixel phones primarily. That's what it looks like here. The phone, other than having the Arcane OS, it was basically pretty basic. It offered pin scrambling. This is where the pin entry screen will randomly rearrange the digits, potentially stopping third parties from figuring out the device's passcode if watching someone type it in. The status bar at the top of the screen included a shortcut for what appeared to be a wipe feature on the phone, with an icon showing a piece of paper going through the shredder. Users could also set up a wipe code, which will wipe the phone device right from the lock screen and configure the phone to automatically wipe it if left offline for a specific period of time too. Boy, you can really see how this would attract, the criminals to it, wouldn't you? The encrypted phone companies typically offer similar data destruction capabilities, and at least in some cases, they're able to remotely wipe the phones while they're in the authorities' possessions, hindering their investigations. The Department of Justice has charged multiple people who allegedly worked for Anam in part for obstructing law enforcement by using this wipe feature. This is really interesting because it gets into like multiple jurisdictions and how things work. But the calculator theoretically opens chat, but it didn't work anymore once they got the phone. Somebody was already trying to wipe it, or maybe they already did wipe it. There was also another OS called Graphene OS, but a lot of people, didn't have that on their phones. Looks like, basically, and this is what was told to them by the Department of Justice. They said, we can't just run a good investigation. We also have to run a good company, they told Motherboard in a phone call. That included providing customer service and solving users' tech issues and potentially dealing with hackers who may target the company too. So not only did they build a phone and a platform, they also had to build a company so that they could try to bust people. It almost seems like it says, like a honeypot. It's like entrapment. Where like if like a police officer pulled up to you and they were like in a like a hooker outfit, and they were like, hey baby, you want a good time, $20, and you're like, you weren't even thinking about it, but then you accidentally say yes or something like that, boom, they got you, right? It's just like, I don't know. It seems a little fishy to me. I mean, unless they were seriously targeting, like drug dealers, and they were like, hey, boom, let's just send them on one to their house. We know they're involved in something. Let's send this out and see if they use it. Okay, I could see that, but I don't know. So basically, they had 800 arrests off of almost 12,000 devices. So what's that? That's less than a 10% arrest rate for almost 12,000 devices, but probably better than the overall population, right? So they probably considered this a success. They were able to recover a whole bunch of cocaine hidden in tuna, hollowed out pineapples, and diplomatic pouches inside of Anam's website. So next time you're using your phone, just make sure you're not dealing in cocaine, Probably a good idea. Next time you use your phone, make sure you're doing the right thing. Don't do stupid things. Be a good citizen. Do the right thing. Continue to question the universe around you. Continue to question, whether or not governments are for you or against you. But again, we know what's right. We know what's wrong. Do the right thing. So what are your thoughts on phones? Personally, I like to have my privacy. I'm not planning on doing anything wrong, but I like having my privacy. I like having private conversations, and I don't like my phone or other smart devices listening to me. I don't want an Alexa in my house, but I listen to the Alexa because somebody bought it for me, and I plugged it in, and it's cool because you got music and you can talk to it. But I also know it's listening to me. So I have to be aware of what I say and make sure I don't say something stupid, and make sure I unplug it if I'm, going to have a conversation that I want to be private. Because I feel like one day this society that we're in, especially in America, might turn into the Minority Report from 2002, where they just start to arrest you based off of thoughts that you didn't even think yet. They're already predicting what you're going to think with the Google search algorithms, and they're promoting ads in your feeds because they're basing it off of what you've already looked at. So if you've already looked at something, that's a precursor to you becoming a gardener, like, I don't know, potting soil or some shit like that, it's already going to start saying, hey, you might need these jars, you might need these seeds, you might need gloves, you might need all this stuff. It's already thinking ahead, 10 steps before, way before you. So you got to be aware of what you're doing online. You got to be aware of what you're doing on your phones, with these smart devices. Be aware you're being listened to. So anyway, guys, I hope you're having a fantastic day, taking care of yourselves, staying positive, looking forward to the future. I want you to be well, meditate, pray, take care of your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. If you can't always take care of one, try to take care of the other. If you get injured like I did, make sure you let yourself heal, allow yourself that mental space to do it in, and maybe there's a reason why you are injured so that you can work on other things. That may be a possibility. That may be a reason why you got injured in the first place. Then you got to work on these other aspects of your life. So I'm bringing a lot of podcasts to you because I'm injured. So hopefully it helps me, it helps you, and we'll continue on this wild, wacky journey together. So take care of yourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. I will catch up with you next time. Please go like, follow, share, subscribe. And as always, Lockdown Universe is out. Take care of yourselves. Peace.